People don't read ads. People read what interests them, and sometimes it's an ad. And you can apply that to anything. People read LinkedIn posts. People don't read LinkedIn posts. People read what interests them, and sometimes it's a LinkedIn post. Key is to be interesting. And that can mean a whole bunch of different things, by the way. That's the key, is to find out what's interesting right now. Depends on the audience too. Who's the audience on LinkedIn? What type of people are they? What are they interested in? Just because a bunch of people over here find it interesting doesn't mean that these people will now. So that's really it at the end of the day. It's my philosophy about whether or not, it's not about writing short copy or long copy. You should really write like the person who's reading it has to be. If you keep that in mind, you'll write just what needs to be written.
This podcast is brought to you by Penji. Penji is a creative subscription service that gives you access to pre-vetted, agency-trained creatives from all over the world. From graphic design to illustrations to social media management and web development, it's all included for one monthly price. It's time to say goodbye to the hassle of searching for top-notch creative talent. With Penji, you get quality and consistency delivered right to your inbox every day, carefully crafted for you by humans. So meet your new creative team today. Head over to penji.co for more and enter the coupon code located within the podcast show notes.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Fully Managed Podcast, the podcast where we discuss marketing and business tips to help assist you on your business journey. I'm your host, Shannon, Penji's Partnership Coordinator, and I'm joined here today with two very special guests, Justin and Aaron from Genius Scouts. Thank you both for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, of course. So could you both tell me, maybe you have different stories, I don't know. Could you both tell me a little bit about how you guys created Genius Scouts, how you kind of got up to this point? And could you tell me about the history? Because I did read up on your website and it seems like it's a more unique history than a lot of people start. So I'd love to hear about that as well.
Sure, Aaron, you go first.
All right, I guess I'll take it. So I guess we both have relatively different backgrounds. I started off as an accountant, ran a marketing agency for many years, primarily focused on paid ads for SaaS companies, for tech companies, and things like that. But in the past year or two, I was mostly focused more consulting as a fractional CMO. In the course of that work, kind of worked a few times with Justin, brought him in on some projects. We were friends, we live in the same community, but he's also an incredible copywriter and just one of the most, brilliant advertising and marketing ideas guys that I know. And so, it was great pulling him into some projects. He pulled me on the marketing side and some of the projects that he was working with for some clients. And, eventually we just realized that we had a very similar vision in terms of the power of personal branding and LinkedIn content to grow a personal brand, to grow people's companies from a founder-led growth perspective and things like that. And, one thing led to another over the course of, maybe a year or so of working together, on some projects that we decided to start Genius Scouts a couple of months ago, which is essentially a LinkedIn personal branding agency.
Beautiful. Justin, would you like to share your story as well, or do you think that summed it up pretty well?
No, it didn't sum it up at all. Aaron seemed too he was being too humble. That's why I wanted him to go first.
That always needs the last word.
Well, just to clarify that Aaron is a little bit more of a genius than he's letting that off to be. So I have a career in well, I guess originally insurance, but then uh, marketing, advertising, started in the ad world, got the tail end, sort of the Mad Men era when I started working in advertising. We didn't have Facebook ads. We're still doing commercials and print ads and all that, and playing around on the internet. But and um, spent a lot of my time in house and ad agencies, living that life. And when COVID hit in 2020, I was working for an ad agency, and I was creative director, and both my clients, um, stopped their spending. Right, so I was one of the people that was let go, and my wife simply just said, "You're not going back. You're either starting your own agency or you're finding something else to do." And I had no idea what else I would actually do. So I started my own agency, and very quietly, just kind of posting on LinkedIn. I got to a point where I did, you know, hit six figures on it. And but by within 3 years, nothing extraordinary. It's not like clickbait headline ish type stuff, uh, sort of got burnt out from it by then. In the meantime, I'd always been going back and forth talking with Aaron, and at some point towards when I was beginning to get burnt out, Aaron told me, your LinkedIn stuff is really good, and a lot of people hire you because of the LinkedIn. Maybe you should just sell that as a service. And I was like, what are you talking about? That is so beneath me. That is, I'm an ad copywriter. I come up with ideas. I blah blah blah. And you know, at some point, I remember reading an article. This is, how money talks, right? It said, "Oh, LinkedIn ghostwriters are on demand. They charge $750 an hour." And I was like doing the math. I'm like, "Oh, let's see." You know, I had gotten requests to do this for a while, but I always said no. So just at the bottom, I didn't change anything about my content. I still wrote about advertising. At the bottom of my content, I would just write, "You like my posts? I'm offering this ghostwriting service, you know, saying the price." And then like one client, two clients, four clients, five clients, 10 clients. And I was working, with Aaron. I was just telling him about this. And I'm like, I think there's a real business here, because it became more than just ghostwriting too. It was like managing the personal brand, creating the personal brand, dealing with like some crisis issues, either kind of being a pseudo publicist or working with the publicist, or it became a lot more. Um, and so I was like, Aaron, I think this is what we both want to do. And this is your fault. You told me to do this. So I now need your, help in so I don't burn out again in turning this into a business, which is, by the way, really predicated on helping people. Like a lot of the people that come to us are like they need help, and it's more than just writing the content, but it's also kind of like help finding out who I don't want to say finding out who they are, or finding themselves, or whatever, but just solidifying that, and being what I like to call. A lot of people say like they try to get things to control the chaos, but it's really to be okay in the chaos, right? And yeah, that's pretty much the story.
That's beautiful.
Well, this whole thing is Aaron's fault.
It's all Aaron's fault. I mean, like, fault can be a good thing too, I guess, everything seemed to be working out. So how did you guys kind of develop your framework for, you have like the pillars of LinkedIn domination and different things like that. Did this something that kind of happened naturally as your engagement on LinkedIn, you figured out what worked? Or was this something that you created after you kind of realized the need for certain things?
Yes, so I guess the three pillars that I usually talk about are something that I discovered when I was running my agency, and just kind of what was working for me at the time. And essentially what those three pillars are, it's creating good thought leader content to post on LinkedIn at the base level, and then making sure that it's seen by the people who need to see it. So one level of that is using automation to connect with the right people that are important to you, be it colleagues, be it potential customers in terms of your ideal client persona and things like that, be it other influencers that you just want to have a relationship with. And then the third pillar of that is also running LinkedIn thought leader ads. So basically putting a little bit of an ad budget to boost your most popular, impactful, influential posts that you write, to make sure, again, those are seen by the right people, whether they follow you or they don't follow you. And so that was something that I was doing when I was running my agency. And my experience, as an agency owner, and, there's certain successes I had and many failures that I had. But one thing I always saw was that when I was creating content, when I was sharing, my thought leadership and my playbooks and my expertise and story and all those things, suddenly I was getting a lot more leads. There were a lot more people reaching out to me. There were a lot more people wanting to work with me. But I don't naturally love writing, and with the consistency of writing the same way that Justin does. So I would, write a little bit. I'd post for a month or two. I'd get a whole bunch of clients, and then I'd get really busy with those clients because I wasn't delegating as much as I should have been at the time. And then I would stop posting, and then the leads would kind of dry up a little bit, and things would slow down again. And then, the pendulum would swing the other way. And I'd start, creating content again, and sure enough, more leads would start coming in. But I started realizing, there's pieces of that are dependent on me, which is the content creation and me pulling the ideas out of my head and creating those. But then that could be automated and scaled a little bit through, like I said, the automated outreach and boosting it with ads. And I've seen other people that I've spoken with that are doing the exact same thing successfully. Justin is an incredible copywriter and content creator. But so he brings that piece, which I always think is really the basis, because without that, none of the rest of it succeeds. But then when we add the fuel, so to speak, of distribution, that's where magic can really happen.
Yeah, I could think that you guys make an incredible team in that way. That's kind of awesome. It's great that you found each other. So you had mentioned the advertising aspect of things. I know that advertising on LinkedIn can get a little pricey. How do you kind of delegate what you're including in the advertisement to make sure that it's doing something valuable with that kind of price tag?
So you're asking in terms of the paid ads spend part of it.
Yes.
Yeah. So most of what we're doing for our clients, I mean, I have some clients that I run broader, bigger campaigns for and such. But within Genius Scouts, mostly what we're doing is what's called thought leader ads, which essentially people think of as, boosting content, which can be done from a personal profile. So you could be boosting it from key members of your team, or even from customers who might say something cool about you as like a testimonial. You could boost with their permission. You can boost those posts to the ideal audience that you want to be able to reach. Now, what's cool about it is you really don't have to spend a lot of money if you're just thinking about a really, sniper approach to hitting the right people. So, for example, we can be taking, if you've got a, you know, dream 200 list of the ideal, clients that you would want to be working with, we can create a matched audience where we just upload the domains of those 200 companies, so that now we can target just those 200 companies. We can then refine that to just the job functions or job titles or seniorities that we want to be able to hit within that company. And now we're down to a pretty small audience of maybe, 1,000 people, let's say, that we're going after. Now, thinking that CPMs on LinkedIn might be running anywhere from typically 100, 150, maybe as high as $200 for CPM, basically to reach 1,000 people. You can reach those 1,000 people for $100, $200, right? At least the ones that are signing into LinkedIn, which isn't terribly much if you're going after really, really important people at the specific dream companies you want to work with. You could be doing the same thing, hitting other influencers within your industry. You could be hitting journalists or people to write in trade magazines or hosting conventions related to your industry. So there's a lot of really cool things we could do with that with a relatively small budget. LinkedIn allows you to run ad campaigns, and a campaign is essentially one objective combined with one target audience for as little as $10 a day. So realistically, you can keep it like an always on campaign for $300 a month, which is pretty good, and know that you're really hitting the most important people. And if you just keep doing that, let's say every week you trade out the piece of content that you're posting, you could just really stay top of mind with some really important content in front of the right people.
That's really incredible. I'm not super familiar with LinkedIn ads. I just remember overhearing my boss talk about the expense of them. I was just really curious about that.
People talk about them being expensive when you think about the cost per impression side of it,
Mhm.
but because there's so much more business data in the targeting, that the value is actually much higher. So impressions are much more expensive than, let's say, Facebook and Instagram,
Mhm.
but the cost per lead, the ability to target higher value accounts and people, leads to more revenue, could lead to a lower cost per deal, and sales and revenue that you're generating. So in some ways, people will look at it more as being more expensive, but in reality, I think it's actually cheaper in many ways because you're hitting the right people.
Yeah, okay. That makes a lot of sense. So it's kind of as long as you target it correctly, then it can be.
As long as you target it correctly, as long as you've got good product market fit, as long as you've got a good offer and content in terms of the creatives that you're actually promoting to people. So
Mhm. Interesting. Okay. That's actually that's I love learning on this podcast, and that was something that was really helpful because I really did not know that, and I am unfamiliar with um I guess the particulars of LinkedIn is something that is relatively new to me, as a professional, I suppose. I For the longest time, I just didn't wanna use it. Feels like this feels like social media for adults, and I hate that.
a little while, then we can get back to have more fun again.
Yeah, no, I've been an adult for a while. I just, was thinking about a social media for professionals, and I was like, "I don't know if that's my speed," but it is really important. It's actually been super helpful with promoting the podcast as well, for engagement.
Principles and who we can reach. If someone's got a consumer product that, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok might be better platforms. But if you're trying to reach out to business professionals and that's how you define your target customer, then I think in most cases LinkedIn is the best.
Yeah, that's definitely the target customer. I remember at the earlier stages of me in this job trying to come up with different kind of gimmicky ads for TikTok and Instagram because I'm on the younger side of things and those are what I think of immediately for engagement for a type of service. But those are not the people we're looking for. Like the professionals that we're trying to reach are not on TikTok probably that often.
Yeah. Well, they might be, but they're much harder to target and find.
So on a content side of things, maybe Justin, you would be able to answer this. What is your criteria for creating that type of, like, I guess the post side of things? So like what do you look at in a business when they come to you or a person looking for something that's going to get a particular type of engagement or reach the right audience?
Can you clarify the question you're asking? What do I look for in a client? Or like, am I particular about the client? Or how do I just determine what content to write for the client?
Yeah, sorry, that's okay. Determine the content to write for the audience. Sometimes I
This
in circles.
No, no, no. No, it's fine because believe it or not, the two are actually kind of connected. The,
Yeah, you can talk about both.
we we say no to clients too. There are people. Look, um, part of the personal branding thing is you have to be someone who can do it, like who has the personality to do it, and has either the style, the charisma, the thoughts, something unique about them, that's sort of already, um, usable, so to speak. It's not to say that we couldn't take, you know, somebody who's just like a boring engineer and make them interesting. We could. It just takes a little bit more, training, and whatnot. And it's not to say that we couldn't, also possibly, do something for them. But at the end of the day, I treat the ghostwriting aspect of this business very much like a traditional ghostwriter would for a book. Because if you look at a lot of the ghostwriters that are on LinkedIn, and if you actually go and you click their plans, what they basically do is, and they even advertise it, like you don't have to worry about anything, no approval process or whatever, and they just kind of take their formulas and templates and they look at your industry and they maybe talk to you once or twice a month or maybe not, and then they just pump stuff out. I found that if I speak to a person once a week, or every other week, depending, on the plan or whatever, and get their ideas, and help, get their ideas, spar with them a little bit, maybe give them some things to think about, get their reactions to things, and then take that and turn it into content. The content performs always, without fail, 10 times better than it would if I'm just coming up with ideas for them. And sometimes I let my clients find that out on their own, and then they're like, "Oh, they can't wait." Um, One of my favorite techniques to do it, believe it or not, is devil's advocate. So I will get on, you know, um, say I'm dealing with somebody who owns a, um, performance marketing agency, right? So I'll get on a call with them, and I'll pretend to be like a huge advocate of brand awareness. And not just one who's like, "Oh, yeah, performance is important too," but it's like, "Performance is a waste, like, don't do it." It's not it's cheating, there's fraud, there's this. I'll throw everything at them and get their reaction so much so that they get mad, and they start yelling. I had a client get really mad at me when I talked about, like, the whole fraud issue and, stuff like that, and, that fiery response is where the passion is. So you take that content, you take that, you turn it to content. And, and it's their opinions, their thoughts, it's their thinking. Um, we just don't know how to, you know, sometimes just didn't even know that that's what people wanted to hear, and then they certainly don't know how to write it and put it out there. Um, and that's my general approach. I am dealing. Genius Scouts is dealing with a different caliber of people on LinkedIn. It's the people who they're either already leaders or they're real potential leaders of 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 their of their business in their industry. Sometimes, even outside the industry, and we're introducing them to the business world. Academics, we have one academic and artists and whatnot, and um, who really crave a unique voice. They don't want to be just putting out content the sky is blue. If you're hungry, eat type of stuff. They care about their voice. They care about their impressions. They have a long-term vision, not just a short-term vision. And so we're catering to that crowd, and we're creating unique, thought-provoking content for them, which is challenging because it's a hit or miss, on this platform. But when we nail it, it works really well.
And I would say that Justin and his team are nailing it most of the time. But most of the clients that we're working with are pretty happy with the output and the amount of increased reach they're getting. Because as Justin said, the type of people we want to work with are already thought leaders. It's not just, someone who decided like, I have no experience, but I want to like win this LinkedIn thing. It's people who have already accomplished a lot. They've run businesses. They're maybe speaking on stage at events, and they just don't know how to play a LinkedIn game, or they don't think they have time, or they don't think they have the writing skills, but we know they have the ideas. And Justin's ability to challenge them and pull those ideas and help them clarify their thoughts, and then to translate that into great copy is really where the wins are. And most of the clients are winning, and just incredible things are happening on their behalf. And a lot of times those things can't be measured, which is like the really fun thing about LinkedIn content is, it's not like a performance ad campaign where it's like, oh, we did this, or we could track, through UTM tracking or something, and such happened. There's all these almost intangible results that are happening and things that our clients are reporting back. And it's too bad sometimes we can't talk about them directly because we never want to reveal who our clients are because of their the fact they're working with a ghostwriter. They don't want that to be known. But people are being invited to speak on stage. People are going to events and being recognized and having people come and say how much they love their content. People are invited onto podcasts. I mean, you invited us onto this podcast, I believe, as a result of the content that we're putting on LinkedIn. And these things are happening for clients as well. And just relationships and qualified sales leads and revenue being generated. And then, again, not all of that is a direct linear path where we can connect the dots from the content, but we hear the stories that's going on, and it's exciting. And I think it invigorates us to keep doing what we're doing.
Yeah.
I just want to add one thing to that. I think it's a very important thing that he said is that we create content. One of the other strategies is where a lot of people create content for the audience, and we don't do this for every client, but when they have a specific goal, if it's thought leadership, just thought leadership, we also my philosophy actually is I create content for the press, because if I can get the attention of Adweek, Ad Age, Creative Review, the reporters they're only interested in stuff that their readers are going to read anyway. So I use them almost as a filter. And so a lot of times when I'm writing these posts, I'm thinking about them. I know the different reporters, what they're into, what they like to cover and whatnot. And by doing that, we get just from the LinkedIn posts, we get our clients' coverage like all the time. And sometimes with 3 of our clients, we work very heavily with their PR team actually too. We work together and in order to get stories and make stories and highlight things and whatnot. So
That makes a lot of sense. It's actually really nice that you're able to cater to that side of things because I think that maybe someone that did something similar to you wouldn't consider that as much. I have two things about what you guys both said. First thing is, I was actually going to ask you if there was a particular type of person that would be like an ideal client, and maybe if there was someone that wouldn't be, which is interesting because you actually did answer that question for me. So thank you. And then what I really thought was interesting was you talking about Justin, devil's advocate specifically for posts. I definitely resonate with that because I know, one of my bosses, big thing for when he posts YouTube things, which may be like slightly different, but a similar vice of, a lot of videos that he makes that focus on they might not actually focus on the negative, but having, like, the description kind of focus on a negative is something that gets people more interested in it or have more of an opinion on it, which I think sometimes gets it engagement. And I don't mean that playing devil's advocate can always be negative, it might just be an opinion that's different than the majority, but I do think that that is something that can get people amped up, which is important with engagement. I'm much more likely to engage with something that I don't agree with rather than something that I agree with. If I agree with it, I might just click a like or, a support or something like that, and that's fine. But, I'm not really someone to fight with people on the internet though, so maybe not. But I would in my head. I would get very angry in my head.
Yeah. I mean, to be clear, I play devil's advocate with my clients in order to get them passionate and get their answers and their opinions out of them. However, I do recommend to people who are just starting out on LinkedIn and trying to figure out what content to write to, make a list of fundamental assumptions that their industry make, things that, people say all the time. And my favorite example is in copywriting. People say, oh, people have short attention spans. Okay. So basically, you just take that and flip it and say, no, they don't. Or even worse, that doesn't matter. Like if people have short attention spans, and why do they binge watch entire seasons of shows on Netflix? It's not the attention spans haven't changed. It's just content has gotten worse and more, and there's just more of it. And so, um, you know, and so you write down these things, and it's not that hard to debunk these sort of assumptions, right? Or these idioms that people say. So that definitely is a strategy, and it's a good strategy. As long as you agree. I mean, as long as you agree with it, or you don't care if you agree with it or not, and you're just experimenting with putting stuff out there. That believe it or not, I think that's fine too. To find yourself by posting is also a completely legitimate strategy. You'll learn that way. Um, there's entire educational theories on that. Just go around probe people, and you'll learn a lot, right? So,
Yeah. No, I definitely agree with that. It's also really nice to be able to learn through engagement. That's like
mm,
my favorite part about the podcast. Is I even think I exactly to your point is I was talking to someone from Wistia, if you're familiar with them, about video content, short form content specifically. And my impression or my opinion, I guess, was that short form content is more popular now because of uh Gen Alpha, and how, maybe their attention spans are shorter. But I was thinking about that and I'm like, I am Gen Z and I am relatively close to Gen Alpha. And I was thinking my attention span is not shorter just because I watch short form content. I actually watch a lot of long form content too. I think it's the attention grabbing of short form content that is what changes things. And I actually was talking to his name is Sam about this, and he changed my mind completely about that people just have shorter attention spans. I think to have long form content, you just need to continuously grab someone's attention because I think that we're so used to the short form content and that they're able to maintain our attention for a short period of time because of whatever that content is, and they just have to translate that to long form content, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but short-term content is gonna be easier because you only have to maintain someone's attention for a very short period of time.
Exactly.
Long-form content will usually be deeper in terms of what the information you're trying to portray, which should stimulate intelligent people, and ultimately, there's a time and a place, and there's a right, format for depending on the type of content that you're trying to communicate to somebody. And
Exactly.
it's important to remember here that the medium is the medium is the message. So what that means is that the medium is the thing that dictates this. It's not human nature. So when you're scrolling like this, right, and you come across a video and the video starts with an outside shot of a house, you're going to keep scrolling. When you're watching a TV show and a commercial comes on with a shot of the outside of the house, you're in a different mode of, of consuming content. And so you're not necessarily, you're going to move away, and then it goes into the commercial, right? And it's funny and whatever, right? That's great. So certain pieces of content work better on certain mediums. And certainly on social media, anything with a feed, an endless feed like that, um, attention grabbing short term things are going to work better than than longer stuff. However, I recently posted an 80 slide carousel. Granted, each slide was maybe like 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 sentences, but it was still 80 slides. And I think that was the limit, 80, because I went to 100 and that post didn't do so well. But I started with 40 and 60 and 80, and each time people were like, I can't believe I just swiped through read this whole thing. I swiped through 80, 60, right? So at the same time, again, I think fundamentally, to quote one of my ad heroes, Howard Gossage, people don't read ads. People read what interests them, and sometimes it's an ad. And you can apply that to anything. People read LinkedIn posts. People don't read LinkedIn posts. People read what interests them, and sometimes it's a LinkedIn post. The key is to be interesting, and that can mean a whole bunch of different things. By the way, That's the key, is to find out what's interesting right now, and it depends on the audience too. Who's the audience on LinkedIn? What type of people are they? What are they interested in? What you, it just because a bunch of people over here find it interesting doesn't mean that these people will now. So, but that's really it at the end of the day. It's my philosophy about whether or not something with copy should be long it's not about writing short copy or long copy. You should really write like the person who's reading it has to pee. If you keep that in mind, it's funny, but if you keep that in mind, um, you'll write just what needs to be written, so that they can eventually go to the bathroom.
That's
I think you got your episode title right there, Rebel. Listen,
that's incredible.
auto room pace of people who need to pee. There you go.
I also love a good analogy. I think analogies are used heavily in marketing so much because people love to compare marketing to something that's not marketing related, because marketing as a general basis is boring to some people. I feel like but it's really nice to be able to. My boss loves to relate marketing to dating constantly. Like, this is like a very common.
Famous one. There's a lot of similarities, and there's also a lot of. So I actually did a post on that where I went and I took advice on. I took advice. I get all this relationship stuff advice. There's the best marketing advice that you can steal from dating advice has to do with uh, advising men about getting women. Women getting men, if you think about it, it's doesn't work as well, because it's not the same. It's not the same thing. And so, um, I found all these posts of advice from women. I forget her name. She's English, and she gives advice. And so I took all of their stuff, and I just changed the words. I changed the word woman to audience or consumer, and man to brand and stuff like that. And I literally pretty much took it word for word and posted it on LinkedIn as advice. And the post did incredible. It did incredible. And then I did that for like 3 days, and then I wrote a post saying, "Hey, I just want you guys know about this hack. Um, not that I recommend doing it because it is somewhat stealing, but uh, uh, that you should do it." So there are fundamental truths. There are similarities. Obviously, you're trying to impress somebody, but there are also a lot of differences that should be kept in mind. But it's fun.
No, that's awesome. And
Sorry, I went off on a
no,
tangent.
so that's really fun. Again, I love the analogies in marketing, and also the stealing part. I've read somewhere, I think it was for one of my art classes in college. I don't know, it was art history or something, but it was art is doing stealing tastefully, because everyone gets inspiration from somewhere, and no one is actually creating anything original at this point and that's okay. And just I think marketing is a
It's like
big.
we're borrowing ideas from different places and different people, but then we're combining different ideas from different places and combining it to make art than ours. It's like, no artist can own all the colors, right? The colors exist and we just mix and match them in our way, even that might be inspired by somebody else. And the same is true with content.
The important thing is, I'm just going to say this because this is just my pet peeve right now. The important thing is whether or not you do the work. It's okay to copy. It's okay to be inspired, like at this point, a template with blanks things in it is better than using AI because at least the template now it's forcing you to cram your ideas into this form, and it's at least training you to some degree how to think and to write. Um, but today, for example, somebody posted something on AI, and they were like, how to come up with ideas, and they're like, go to Google, search your topic, write, look at the thing that people ask questions for, like how to on that topic, take them, put them into this chat GPT thing that I made, get a list of topics, take that topic, put it into another chat GPT thing designed for LinkedIn that I made, and voila, you get a LinkedIn post. And I looked at the LinkedIn post. Okay, you know what? Not bad. And it's, if you need money for your family or whatever, and you're just trying to make a quick buck or whatever, go ahead, do it. I honestly have no problem with it. Like, go ahead, do it. Do what you need to do, obviously, to make money to feed your family and whatnot. If, however, you're trying to build something bigger, if you have longer term goals, if you have, higher aspirations, really don't do that. I mean, because you're not you're not helping yourself. You're not um, learning how to think, how to write. I mean, if you already know how to think and to write, then maybe doing that thing, whatever, right? But if you don't yet have those skills, there are other advantages to learning how to write, how to think, how to create content. Get the questions from Google and then try to answer them yourselves first before you go to ChatGPT. Like do a little bit of the work because as my post today actually talks about, I honestly believe that one of the new qualifications of good advertising in the coming years is going to be the perceived amount of effort put into it. It's never been an issue before because you've always had to put effort into creating content or an ad or whatever. And so the person's reading it could be like, that sucked, that sucked, that sucked. But now it's becoming so much clearer that like, not only does this suck, but it's clear that you don't know me, don't care, don't like the minute I find out it's AI, there's like this thing that happens, right? And so I think that that's big. I think that that's going to become an issue. I think that you're even going to begin to see things like typos and mistakes in videos and whatever almost becoming a a creative signature, so to speak, or I can imagine they're going to call it like raw marketing or something like that. Becoming a thing because it's like, look, I'm proving that I'm real. I'm proving that I'm really doing this for you, and I'm really putting it out there. I know Aaron has other thoughts on this.
Well, I mean, I agree with much of what you say. We've debate this a lot here in the office, but I think one important point I think there when one's using AI to kind of create something with almost zero effort, I don't have as much philosophical, ethical disagreements to it as Justin does, as long as you're not stealing from other people, obviously. But I think there's an element that if you were trying to build yourself into a thought leader and you're selling, especially if you're selling a service or something that's dependent on my thoughts, then if the goal of our content is to create relationships with someone that ultimately wants to talk to us and work with us, but then we've kind of done that on the basis of thoughts that weren't ours in the first place, then there's a little bit of a disconnect that you aren't actually the person that the potential customer thought they were going to talk to because you put out this content that doesn't really represent you, your personality, your style, your thinking, your ideas. And because I know often it's the ideas we put on our content are what sells people. I've had many people come to me on sales calls and say, Aaron, I've been following your content for 2 years. I knew I needed to hire somebody at the time it was for an ad agency. I knew I needed to hire an ad agency at a certain point in the future. And I knew whenever that time came, I wanted to work with you because I like the way you think about these problems. And that was because the content was my content that I created. Again, this was almost pre-AI a couple of years ago. But if that work had just been done by me, a couple of clicks and pushing a button, then I would have been selling something that wasn't real because the ideas that brought that customer into me wouldn't have been my own. That process and thought pattern wouldn't have been my own. And I probably wouldn't have been able to help that client nearly as well. So
Yeah, no, 100%. I've always talked to other marketing agencies that kind of have a similar scope of everything about how I think that agencies don't talk to each other enough, and I think that there's a lot of this feeling of there's secrets, like there's a way to do things and we don't want to tell other people because then they'll do it like us. But I think that people that are more open with talking about their strategies for things specifically in the agency world, I think that those are the people that are actually confident in their work because that means that you think that even if someone were to copy the way that you do it, they can't do it the same way as you. And I think that's kind of what AI is the equivalent of in this conversation is that, like, yes, AI can probably do something similar that you can, but they can't do it in the same way that you can. They can't do it with the personal touch that you can. They can't do it like humans. I was never afraid that AI was going to replace humans. Yes, sometimes it replaces certain jobs and different things like that because they're this specific field that can be replaced by a computer. But for personal touches on things like writing and all these different things, like even if AI can make it seem personal, it's still pulling from all these other places that are not personal and are other people that are already existing. And that's not a person. That's just a computer. And you can see that through reading stuff. We can even see it sometimes we're in the business of looking at reviews for competitors and different things like that. We can tell when a review is AI generated. It's so obvious and the more you look at AI generated content, the more you can tell that that's a thing. And I think that anyone that is looking into AI content, which I feel like agencies are huge in looking in AI content because it's very helpful with the grunt work, that they can familiarize with that and know and immediately pick you out for doing that. And they probably won't want to work with you. Or maybe if you're doing it really good and really tastefully, maybe they will want to work with you. I don't know. But I don't think that it's as common. And yeah, I don't have any really gripes with it, perhaps, but I do think that I don't know, I'd rather send a personalized email to someone, thanking them or, outreaching to them without it being generated by a computer because I just feel better doing that. And people get to know my personality and people get to know me. And I feel like that personal ability is really important in an agency space and in business space in general.
actually,
As you can,
Christian, the me factor and the you factor, I think, are the most important things. And I think it's a really critical point for people to get past what they might consider like the imposter syndrome or the fear of creating, which is, I think many of us, we go on, we'll talk about LinkedIn as the platform. We go on LinkedIn and we see what people we perceive as our competitors are posting. We're like, oh, they said it so well. They're so smart. Their content's so great. But I actually have the same ideas. We have a very similar take on that same idea, but I don't want to post that topic because they've posted that topic. They've stolen that content topic already. And it's really not the case because there are so many things that could be said, but I'm going to say it differently than you're going to say it. And Justin's going to say it differently than I'm going to say it for sure. Um, and I think is that unique take and the unique nuances that we each add to the way that we bring across ideas, even if 90% of what we're saying is very similar to almost what every other person in our industry is going to say. It's that uniqueness that's going to draw in the people who really would be a good connection on a personality wise level to work with us. And to some extent, hopefully will repel the people who just don't like my style, who wouldn't be fun for me to work with, who I'm not going to get along with very well. I want those people repelled as far away from me as possible. And I want my personal way of working to attract the people who are really cool and nice and creative and great to work with.
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
And this is another argument, by the way, for what I was saying before about the importance of doing the work and learning how to write and learning how to think. Because the, the, the issue of using AI for yourself, I'm not talking about mimicking somebody else's writing or this or that, but for yourself is um is is predominantly for somebody who doesn't have a voice. So like there's all these AI programs that say it will take your voice and we promise it'll use AI without losing your soul. Well, some people, this is going to sound harsh, but some people don't have souls yet. Some people don't have a voice yet. Some people don't have a tone, a perspective, or anything. And that's okay because they're young or they're just getting into an industry or they just never have thought about it that way before. And so in order to get that, you need to do the work. right? You need to think for yourself, learn how to write. Writing is organizing your thoughts. That's what writing is. It's not necessarily writing, organizing your thoughts, stuff like that, and develop a unique voice that way. You're not going to develop it with AI. And so, I mean, using AI tools with research and stuff, maybe, but, and then once you have that tone, then you can train an AI to be an extension of your voice, an extension of something. It needs something to mimic. If it's just writing the perfect LinkedIn post, then it's writing the perfect LinkedIn post just like everybody else. So it can't copy a voice if you don't have one. And so, really that's why I say, a lot of people say use AI to help you scale, then go and do the writing that you want to do. I say actually do the opposite, right? Do the work, do focus on the quality, and then use AI to help you scale that quality. Just seems like a smarter, a better strategy to me. So, because look, that's the other thing that people have to be careful about. All these people who go around saying, hey, look, I used AI and I got, and now I have a 500,000 followers or whatever statistic or numbers they want to prove to show how great AI is. But you have to look at them and be like, oh, they were already famous before AI came out. So AI didn't make them famous, and AI didn't build their personal brand, and AI didn't make them amazing thinkers and whatnot. And so when they use AI, it's not a fair litmus test for you of you using AI, and starting from scratch or whatever. If Gary Vaynerchuk, I always give this analogy, if Gary Vaynerchuk went onto ChatGPT and said, give me 365, aphorisms about gratitude, and then without even looking at them, cut and paste them, put them in the Hootsuite, and then pump them out on LinkedIn every day at 5 p.m. Boom, boom, boom. Each one of those would get thousands and thousands of likes. Imagine if he was like, I used AI to do it. See how great that was? No, of course, it has nothing to do with him using AI, right? All AI did was help him do it faster, but he's already established himself as the person who's all about gratitude and all about this, and he's already famous. Such an important thing to remember. And that's why when we deal with clients, I like to take their thoughts. It's from their thoughts. It's not me thinking for them.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think AI is an incredibly useful tool, but you just have to use it in a way that is still personal and brings out your personality and is still emphasizing who you are.
Okay.
Well, this is all the time we have for today. I'm so sorry for cutting it short. We are so over time, but I couldn't cut it off because this was an incredible conversation.
Typical. I take it as a good sign that I always make a podcast for over.
No, this is incredible, and I keep the time aside, so just in case, exactly. And this is an incredible conversation, so I couldn't cut it short. That would be awful. But thank you guys so much for coming on with me today. I really appreciate it. And again, I hope that I say this every podcast, but it's my favorite thing to learn on the podcast, and I definitely learned a lot during this episode, so I really appreciate it.
Thank you. It was a lot of fun. No problem.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks for having us on.
Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for watching or listening. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to see more videos like this. Thank you. Yep.
Wherever it is.
I don't know where it's going to be. That's a great idea.
There.
The editing team puts it in the perfect place every time. But thank you everyone, and thank you so much.
You've been listening to Fully Managed, brought to you by Penji. Check out the show notes to learn more about today's guest, and to learn more about Penji, the human-first creative subscription service, head over to penji.co. And by the way, if you're still listening, it would mean the absolute world to us if you were to share this podcast with a friend, and of course, subscribe.